Yeah, I started recording. Stephen, you can start.
Thanks, Ryuka. Hi, everyone. I think last time we had a pretty good discussion about the package versioning and how to specify a dependency on other packages and other components. I think there was an agreement with that, which is reflected in the app extension HLD. There is one more important thing about the base OS versioning. Uh, and so currently a package can depend on a particular base OS version, which may be some functionality in SONiC utilities that it depends on, because currently a package provides a CLI plugin, and this CLI plugin is just a Python module just copied to the host and executed from the host. And now this plugin can talk to SONiC Utilities API and call some functionality which it depends on. It also may mean that there is a dependency on a specific kernel feature, which and the kernel is part of the base OS, and other kind of services which, as I know from Dronuka, on the host there is running SONiC host service. It's a dbus based communication with the host, and these kind of three things are exposed to the package. So now there are in this situation, when one of these components changed, there should be a base OS version upgrade. So the packages can reflect that in their dependency on the base OS. So for example, when the SONiC utilities changes in a way that it breaks some functionality that may be used by the SONiC utilities plugin, which comes from the package. It is the SONiC utilities contributor responsibility to upgrade the version of the base OS in a way that it will tell that incompatibility, so upgrading the major version. And in another scenario with the
Stephen, I'm not very sure if everybody gets it. I'm not really very clear on that. The SONiC utilities, I like the base OS versioning dependency, but your explanation on SONiC utilities, can you a little bit more say that?
Yeah.
I really am not getting the entire picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go to the utilities CLI extension.
Okay.
How do we extend the CLI currently is that a package in the Docker image, there is a Python module, which during the installation is copied on the host, placed in the well-known place for SONiC utilities code, so that SONiC utilities, when you invoke some command, can look at that directory. It's basically a Python package, and load all those plugins dynamically. And this is a code snippet that reflects what I'm saying. So it can look at the show plugins package, load all of the modules that exist in that plugins.
So how one package registers the plugins there? What is the path of registration?
It's in the manifest.
Okay. So the the package manager will look at the manifest and copy these plugins into the plugin folder.
Yes.
And that updates the CLI behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
So now in that plugin, you can define your own commands. You can register them for the existing commands, like in this case, for a VLAN. Now, if there is some change in the CLI, right, in the base CLI in the SONiC utilities, let's say the VLAN was renamed command or removed, or it was changed in a way this code is no longer working. So any kind of change in the CLI can potentially break the other plugins.
Okay. So in that case, you are already having a dependency on the SONiC utilities package as such, right? Or
It is proposed to be part of the base OS, and again, this is the same question
oh,
that I would like to discuss here. Now we chose that we understood that we for the package we want to specify a dependency on a particular part of that, whether it's a SWSS common, other library. Now we can do the same for utilities, and this is what I want to discuss here. So we can have a single version for the base OS and include utilities there. I want to emphasize that this is whole thing with the plugins. It's kind of phase one only solution because we don't like copying some code or some Python module from the Docker and
yeah,
run it on the host.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to come in next. This seems to open up a big security hole, right? I can pretty much do
Of
anything
course.
in, yeah, that's a big backdoor. I don't know. Gugan, do you have a comment on that?
Now, what I can say is this is what was agreed for phase one
Uh-huh.
till we come with the CLI plugin auto generation based on the DB schema definition based on the Young model. In that case, if the CLI plugin is auto generated by the host, so we can say for sure that the auto generated code doesn't do anything in a way it can expose some security uh, yeah problems.
I had a comment on this, but I'll wait for others to chime in before I say something.
I mean, definitely we need a control at the OS level to allow this or not at the app package manager level or something like, because as an admin, I would like to keep a control on whether I would like to allow the plugins to be copied or not. But the point is, if I don't allow the plugins to be copied, it would break the package functionality, right, completely. So, which means it's as good as not installing the package. So, what kind of control as an admin I have to say that only install applicable packages to my current switch based on all the compatibility things, but I block. Okay, so if I'm installing a package and if the package, if my app package manager blocks the install of the plugins, the whole installation would fail, right?
You mean block, you don't want the CLI, so you will not get the CLI.
But that should, because if I no, the reason is your functionality might depend on the CLI, right? For example, if I do a config update, right, some update, and you have a plugin and that adds an extra field or something or whatever it does, right? And if I block the copying of the plugin, but I have your package installed, and when I run that command, I'm not going to add those extra things which your code expects to have got added, and that would make your package dysfunctional, right? Because
Oh, I don't
you
think
have,
so. I think that
I mean, may or
a
may not,
package
not all the time.
it's field if it's a field in an existing table for an existing object, and if the package says there is no well, it's a mandatory some mandatory field. How did you if it is a mandatory, how did it work before you installed that package? I don't think a package should fail because of the something is missing in the configuration. If it's something is missing in the configuration, it should behave like without that feature, right?
I mean, this
I'm not
is
sure what is the
okay. Okay, here
example
is the
of this.
question. Here is the question. Okay, if I'm going to say that I install all packages, but I would disallow plugins, right? That's a possibility. And then the package developers should be aware of the possibility that the package may get installed without the plugins. Do we make that clear that then the package developers know that they should be able to work even without that plugins installed?
Mm,
And more general question there is,
Uh-huh.
let's say if my package installation is 4 or 5 steps, right? I'm trying to generalize plugins being one of the step. What should happen if one of these 4 or 5 steps fail?
oh, it's aborting the operation and does rollback as.
You're
Uh,
right. So now are we done saying, because you seem to be suggesting that even if a plugin fails, CLI plugin, for example, then the package installation can still go ahead. So are we making an exception for the plugin?
I need to check that in the current implementation. I don't think so. I don't think like in which cases it's a simple copy, so I don't feel like it can fail actually.
I
So
mean,
basically, yeah, basically this is like an any failure, the app package should abort. But now what I'm asking is, does the admin has a control to install a package but skip like a flag, right? Install without plugin flag.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
flag will not even try to.
we can add this,
Yeah,
and I
but when
don't
you
see
add the
why a
yeah,
package should not work if there is no CLI.
yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is, depends on what the package expects the CLI to do for it. Like, I mean, if there is any semantic dependency, but the moment you
Yeah,
make this, the
you
moment you
had
make
an
it,
example. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
the moment you
Sorry.
make it a declarative statement in your thing, right, that the package installers could skip the installation of plugins as an option possibility, then the package developers know, they're not to depend on. Yeah, so just make it clear in there in your document that there is this should be acceptable or the
and
package should abort.
not just that, this thing, right? Not just about the core developers. As a user, if I'm installing a package, and if for some reason if the package gets installed without bringing the associated CLI, because the CLI plugin for whatever reasons there is a dependency check failure, right? Then
No,
as
no,
a
no, that
user, I am in
no
a crossroads.
no, Vishwanath, that would be taken care of by his versioning thing. The moment I say allow plugins to be installed, then the plugins should get installed fine and everything should work fine. That is what Stephen's compatibility versioning check and all that should make it possible, right? So
Mm,
we are not going there.
I don't know, because if you see during the CLA review, we actually added a mechanism for the plugin to basically do some checking whether it can whether it can survive in the current environment at the time of installation, and
No,
then
this
pass
is
on
not at
this
the
message back.
sorry. I at which time of review? You're saying
CLA
you had a
plugin review.
comment
Yep,
about adding a possibility for a plugin to check.
correct.
Well,
And
I replied with the way to do that without any additional kind of API between the plugin and the core.
no, I'm not
But
disagreeing,
this
but
is
still there is a
yeah,
mechanism, right? I'm
there
not
is, but
disagreeing.
this is not in as part of installation.
So when a plugin gets executed, you mean that is when it gets executed? That says, okay, I cannot work in the current environment.
Yeah,
So you are letting installation go through, and then this plugin may actually say, no, I cannot work.
yeah.
So when is that situation? Like I allow the plugin to go through, but you have all the version compatibility checks and all that in place. And so
Yeah, that's
yeah,
probably an issue in the versioning of the package.
uh,
Well,
uh,
I'm thinking of a situation like this, Renuka, right?
mhm.
Imagine you are okay. This is another comment that I had, and this is one that I was trying to say. Um, Imagine your CLI is not this CLI, or not the auto-generated Yang-based CLI, but it is the Clish, that OC Yang-based
Uh,
Clish. Now,
yeah,
so then you
we
have 100 other dependencies to deal with. Not everything can be versioned and then put. So you always have a failover mechanism, or fail-safe mechanism rather, to be able to say, okay, I am supporting the OC Yang for a routing interface, but I need, because of the Yang model dependencies, I also need the network Yang model to be in the Yang tree. to be able to support this. You cannot achieve this through version checks of the packages, right? If you want to have such kind of a check, when will you do it? At the time of installation or at the time of command execution?
Yeah, right.
So
Because
these checks, these all checks should be done as part of installation.
Exactly. Right.
Now, you're taking this too far away from where we are right now, because we don't deal with Yang right now. We don't deal with any other kind of user interface other than SONiC utilities.
Other
This
than
is
CLI. No, here is why I am giving that example. We are talking not about UI, we are talking about what kind of a mechanism does the infrastructure give to be able to support any form, right? See, for example, one of the concern that I had, and I mentioned this, that I will talk about this after somebody, is this. Now, if you see, look at this infrastructure that is as proposed, we are basically saying there is a what Renuka said as a backdoor for copying a Python file. We all say that this is a problem, but in future this may not be a problem because the Yang can, CLI can be auto generated from a Yang. Now, what is the guarantee that that is the CLI, that is the only mechanism that is possible? What if we have to support other forms of CLI, which is not necessarily a Yang based auto generated CLI? Why do we want to even
why
trust the
other
CLI?
why
Why do we want?
others.
Why not, right?
No,
Because
we don't want. Yeah. I agree. We don't want to trust any kind of code that is
exactly,
just simply copied and executed on the host. That's right.
exactly, right. So that also includes the auto generation, because you are implicitly trusting that the auto generated will not do anything for you. Now,
Yeah, but
what kind of a safety mechanisms do we have within the infrastructure so that any exploiting can be prevented?
the auto generation is part of the SONiC core, right?
Again, what I'm saying is auto generation doesn't exist today. And I
Yeah.
don't even know if every package will use auto generation, which is why I'm saying maybe there are other kind of CLIs which are not auto generated the way that you are describing it. What do we do in that case?
Which other CLIs?
The Clish CLI, the one that I think probably Renuka is
The
familiar with.
Clish CLI is based. It's a format based on the XMLs, right? And
It,
it's all executed as part of another container, right?
no, it is not, right, because if you, the moment you say DHCP relay is a feature that as a feature can be installed, it means it comes with the CLI. You cannot say CLI is part of another container. So the
No,
installation,
that is what I'm just clarifying. So the Clish CLI is part of the management framework container, right? This is what I just want to clarify.
it is at runtime when it is getting executed, it is executed as part of the management container. But
Okay.
the question really is, how do I copy the CLI, which is the code of which is coming through the DHCP Docker, which is getting installed, and copy this to another Docker where it is executed? So that
Yeah,
problem you said you are
I don't think we will do the same like for Clish, and I don't think we will, uh, I don't have like a clear answer for that.
exactly. No, I'm not. See, I understand that all this multi-docker thing is what we are trying to solve in phase 2. But what I'm saying is now in phase 1, we are building infrastructure so that anything can be built on the top of it. Here, we don't want to have any implicit dependencies. Say, for example, that okay, with auto-generated CLI, this won't be required. I am trying to avoid any such dependency. If there is a problem that we want to solve it the right way, I think we should. Do I make
Okay,
sense?
so you're saying that if there is a problem, we need to solve it in the right way, like
Exactly.
in the phase 1.
Exactly. Yep.
I see. So okay, Gohan, Marian, what do you
I'm trying
say?
to understand what are the restrictions proposed here that prohibit from using Clish CLI or whatever else in the future. Is there anything that we are restricting to do?
No, I think the fact is that what we do for utilities, we copy a Python module from the Docker to the host, and this Python module is untrusted. Now, if we follow the same for the Cliche, we just copy some plugin for the Cliche to the another management framework container, and it's maybe untrusted.
Yeah, but for Cliche, infrastructure will be extended sometime in the future. We are not saying that Cliche cannot be used, and if someone wants to actually enable this part of infrastructure, you are welcome. I don't see any restriction that we are
Marian,
putting here.
Marian, the question is not really about Cliche, right? I don't care. Let's say for a moment about Cliche. The question really is the way that you are installing a plugin is you are using a copy of a file which is from the installer Docker into some other place through the dbus mechanism. That is untrusting right now. So everybody agrees that that is not good, right? But how
not
are we
really,
avoid?
just
Wait a
just
second.
Vishwanathan, not
Why
really
can't I
dbus.
just install a Debian package, an untrusted Debian package? What's the difference? Why all of a sudden we are concerned with security here when I can install any arbitrary binary on SONiC today?
I mean, the person is taking the risk. I mean, you should be that kind of puts another layer of thing, right? On the, we wanted to make, what we are trying to do is when you install a app package, you can we are making sure some kind of trust free, there's some kind of productivity framework is there in place, which means any it won't be able to do any damage outside the Docker itself. That's what we are trying to see.
Exactly, that's the whole Docker, right? Otherwise, why do we even need Docker? We can execute native programs on the shell. Docker is giving an implicit mechanism that any damage is limited to inside the Docker.
But how can you ensure that if you have a dbus mechanism and you can execute
No,
from the
dbus.
Docker?
Okay. No. Actually, Vishwanath was a little bit. I wanted to correct Vishwanath, like because plugins copying does not happen through dbus. It happens at the time of installation, app package installation. It copies those files into the. Yeah, it copies files from the Docker image into the thing by the package manager, not through dbus. And the dbus is a different mechanism that we don't have it yet, but in future we will have. But there, the admin had to explicitly allow only certain Dockers and for certain calls only. Because the plugins are running in the host, the admin have full control on which plugin this Docker can invoke at host. So it is right now only for user control for the Broadcom management Docker. So the admin will be able to restrict exactly what, because the plugins are part of host OS, so it's not coming from the Docker. So we know what those plugins are, and we would give specific permission to only specific Dockers for executing it. So we have full control on that.
Okay.
If you want to have a full control on any image, I think it should be taken care of the image as a whole. You can sign the image or something like that, which is an orthogonal problem, and then you can trust it. But then what kind of hooks we are exposing, I think it should be open. Why are we all of a sudden trying to restrict something?
No, I think it could be even simpler as at this point to say that I have at the app package manager level, I should be able to say I installed this package without plugins. Like I would like an option in the app package manager to say that install any package mine without the plugins copied. So
Okay.
make it aware in the document that your package should be able to work even without the plugin. So the plugin should be optional. That's it. Then that way, the admin has a control. And if I trust a package, I let it. Otherwise, I don't let it. And that doesn't block app package from getting installed or not.
So Renuka, one question here. If we block the plugins, then it will also block the entry point to utilize the package itself, right? So say if there is no CLI at all, then what's the point of installing the...
If you are running a third party for a feature, right? So that feature is totally depends on the database things, right? It need not run anything in the, it depends on what the package does. And again, we are not saying that, so if the package can keep it optional, fine. And if the package cannot keep it optional, then we go, I mean, take it case by case basis, right? If I really want that feature, I let it. Otherwise, and if I trust it, like Marian said, sign it and make sure it passes all the security checks, then I let it. Stuff like that, yeah. So basically, I need
what is needed is just to explicitly ask the admin to allow or deny installing something in base image besides the Docker image. That's the general requirement. Explicitly ask the admin.
That's my view, and
okay. So my general comment, Marian and Stephen, was I was more concerned about with the saying that okay, this is an issue now, but we don't see this issue when we have auto-generated CLI. This kind of mention was there in few places, so which to me was an implicit saying that in future we will have an auto-generated CLI. There are two issues with that. One, we don't know what that is at this point. Maybe you are, because Stephen has been saying that probably it will be submitted as a PR in a month. The second, I'm not familiar with what it is. And second, if you purely look from a deployment perspective, I don't expect that everybody uses an identical CLI from a deployment. We have customers, some people will prefer Click CLI, some people will prefer some Click CLI, some people will prefer something else. So I'm trying to see that we don't build any implicit assumption that, okay, we have a problem that will be solved with an auto-generated CLI. Because the moment there is no such CLI, we'll end up in a problem because we have probably not looked at it right way in the beginning. As long as this is not an implicit assumption in the design, I am good. Do I make sense?
I think so. For me, it's just I don't see it really as a problem as long as Renuka said, we will ask for any such action outside of the Docker container. We will ask for the permission from admin to do anything in the base image. So sure.
Yep.
Okay, so this option that Renuka said about, it should satisfy all of those comments, right?
From me, yes, yeah.
Okay.
But to the other point, it does place a requirement on the external application developer that their Docker would need to be able to operate and run without installing the plugins. Which doesn't that kind of create two versions of not two versions, but two runtime environments for the external Docker? It seems fairly onerous on the application developers. We want to do this?
But plugins is just one of the interfaces. The interface could change. We still view the central place for communication with the Docker config.db. So you can even install your Docker without your CLI or whatever else interface, and just simply write a script to populate the entries in config.db, and it will work.
Right, I get that, but it means if say I'm a third-party developer and I've developed some wonderful thing which I think is going to make SONiC better. I have to test it in two different ways, right? I have to test it through a native CLI, and I have to test it through, kind of other means. It just seems like we're asking more of the developer.
Right, but if in the future we will, the whole infrastructure will support 5 different interfaces, again, you will need to test it against 5 different interfaces, or put a disclaimer that you support only one.
But do you also believe that there may be a case where the package developer says this is a CLI centric or CLI centric feature, without CLI doesn't make sense. So you have to necessarily install with these flags only. You cannot install without that. So that means the restriction is essentially only that the installer cannot install without the plugins, but the developer can.
I don't believe that CLI will be central to any application. Again, our belief is that config.db is essential as long as you are you have access to it, and you can provide any interface to the config.db from the outside world that you want. We're starting with config.db.
Yeah, as much as I agree, I am trying to answer Ben's question, where is the application developer now required to test one with CLI and one without CLI? And I'm saying, in case it is so essential, then the developer can say that I cannot be installed without CLI.
You know, I agree, but then, you know, obviously you're then placing constraints upon the deployer. So
Right.
I don't know. I just wonder if this is a little bit intrusive in terms of what it means people have to do.
It's a very good point. Ben, Vishwanath, all bringing up like the CLI requirement, right? With all so many different CLIs, which I'm not really familiar with. We need a single way, right? And we publish this way for all the app package developers to be able to use, and that should work in any environment. So it's a big discussion, right? We have the SONiC Utilities CA and schema Sklish and other forms, right? And that has to be one uniform definition or defined UI definition that encompasses everything, and and have a standard declared, and once the standard is declared, and then it will be adopted, the whole OS will adapt to these, right? And that should be one definition. I think that's a bigger topic outside this, and I think there are the experts on this topic are not, at least I don't see many of the experts in of that topic are not in our group. It had to be taken outside.
That you're right. There's a broader issue here as to what is the future of the user interface for SONiC. But I suppose my specific concern is if you do something like create a deployment option that says you have to be the deployer can say no to any any installation outside of the native Docker, right? The application Docker. Then what are people going to do? They're basically going to include the CLI within that Docker, right? Which means that the CLI will just go back to fragmenting, right? And it'll be like VTY shell all over the place. It's just something to think about.
Yeah. So I think. So do we believe that if we're using auto-generated CLI, then we don't have this security concern? Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yes.
Okay. So then I think between the here we have the people develop the plugin versus auto-generated. I think there's a definitely room that we can shape the CLI framework that provides this additional security check, right? So for example, when you load the plugin, you drop the you can drop the root privilege, right? So I think because the plugin is eventually being loaded by the framework, right? So it will not be executed in other ways. Therefore, I think there should be some room that saying that even without auto-generated CLI, auto-generated CLI, right? So then, if we provide some kind of mechanism in that in the current CLI framework, then it can limit the impact. It can address some of the security concern, right? So between the, I feel like auto-generate is just one way to generate the code, right? So if we develop some mechanism in the framework that how do we load that plugin, or if it's a show command, we drop the privileges or those things, right? So that should be doable.
I mean, it should be generic across all plugins, right? Anytime I invoke a plugin code, I drop my privilege, run the code, and then recover.
Yeah, that's just one mechanism, but I believe since the plugin is loaded by the CLI framework, there should be a way, some way to do that. Basic security, privilege drop, right? So
right now, what Stephen's proposal is the CLI. These plugins are invoked by the code running in the host, right? The show command.
Yeah.
So that command is loading the plugin, and you mean to say that we should be able to lower the privilege when you run the plugin?
Yeah.
So is that a possibility, because the plugin may have some init code, and when it loaded itself, and I do not know actually the plugin details. How safe it is that?
The plugin, if you want the plugin to be run at a different privilege, then that means the plugin is an independent one. You take the case of a DHCP relay, where the plugin is not a standalone, providing a new standalone command. Rather, it is going and enhancing parts of an existing command. So the command will work.
It is, right? So it's a part of the either config or show, right? So
right. So then how will you lower the privilege only for parts of a command? That will be very tricky.
I think the framework can do it, right? So so when you load, right? So it's a Python code. When you load that plugin and invoke those, there must be some entry point for those plugins, right? So
no, there are entry points. Maybe Stephen can answer this, but what I saw when we looked at this code is as a part of this plugin, few Python files came in, and they were getting invoked selectively during execution of some other command which is pre-existing. So anyway, maybe Stephen can answer if we can have some functions run at a lower privilege level than the others.
It's not some functions, right? Like basically what Gugan proposal and also the safer side would be to any line of code executed from the plugin, be it init or anything else, or even finalize or whatever, should run at low privilege, right? Like by default.
I'm not sure. I need to investigate that. Like, what is the solution for basically sandboxing some Python code?
So what is the toughness about only going for XML approach, and that let XML or some some data driven approach where the plugin just gives a file and data file XML or whatever, and the CLI gets auto upgraded. These plugins are auto created based on the XML, right?
No, this is what the auto-generated CLI will look like, but this data file, the model file, will be the YAML model. This is what we plan.
Okay, so that means when I install a package, I copy a YAML file from the package, from the Docker image, and my auto-generated CLI will use the YAML file to create these plugins. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, during the installation, it is auto. There will be. It's not finalized, but there will be like a binary that knows how to read the YAML model and auto-generate this plugin basically and put it in the right place.
Yeah, that should be a host code based code, right? I mean, yes. I have a framework. So if I have a framework and I only copy a data file from the app package and I generate the plugin locally, then there is no security issues, right? Because that code cannot do anything.
Yes.
Because it is totally data driven. So data driven approach is quite okay, right? I mean, we were worried that we are copying a Python script from inside the package onto the host is what my concern was. If I'm going to copy
sorry. So see, consider that there may not always be a case that you can live with an auto-generated CLI all the time.
I
Right?
mean, at least we
Your
can
auto,
start with that. No, let's not take 10 steps ahead, right? Let's just take one step ahead, right? To make this movable, go ahead, right? Move on, right? Because we are stuck in this for so long. I'm just trying to find some immediate step and then move on rather than going for the complete solution, right? That is a bigger discussion.
right. My point is, I don't even want to know anything about the auto-generated part. So I'm saying when we are building an infrastructure, do we see an issue? If we see an issue, is it okay? We can live with that. So that was a question. It is not. It's not even about auto-generated CLI for the current step itself. If we all
Okay, I
say
did.
there is no issue, then I think we are good.
No. I didn't get your. Can you explain a little more? I didn't really get it.
Yeah. Now we are saying we have an infrastructure where we are um, we are basically having some kind of a package installation. Correct. So you are installing a package. That parts of the package include a mechanism to support UI for that particular package.
Okay.
Okay, so if we say that the infrastructure can support any kind of UI, and the fact is that there will be multiple UIs, it's even today true, right, for a given thing. Now if we say that the multiple UI case we will address in the next subsequent phases, I'm good. But all I'm saying is, let's not assume that there may not be issues because we have auto generated CLI. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Okay. Now the one. Okay. Now the only thing we are trying to cross now is we will avoid copying code from the from inside the package into the host. That's the only thing now we are saying. And so we are just saying for the developer, if he really wants some CLI update on the first cut, we will propose that you provide a data file in some form, Yang or XML or whatever that the host would support. And all we are going to do allow is copy XML out of your data file out of your package and generate auto CLI. That's the only support we give in phase 1 right now. And then, okay, going ahead, we have a bigger discussion of how we achieve.
No, I think, I mean, because I think the first one we didn't plan for auto-generated CLI, right? So I think itself has some, have some work to do. So therefore, we allowed the people
What
to.
Yeah, Gugan. What I'm trying to say is this plugin, what Stephen put is like a simple extension things. All we can just write a Jinja template or something or some simple generation. Basically, this plugin generated from the data taken from the thing. Instead of copying the plugin, we generate the plugin. And for simple show command and simple config commands, we will do that. That's what I'm saying.
But I'm not sure we have that, right? So
that could be made part of this host framework. Don't you think, Stephen? It's
What is the
possible.
host framework?
In the part of this project, will you be able to provide a tool to be able to generate this plugin from the XML file? Because
This will be in a later phases.
Yeah, but the problem is the timeline here.
Yeah,
we wanted to start with something.
So I think this is somewhat. I feel like it's a roadmap discussion versus what is the principle, right? So generally what I heard the concern is the security concern, right? So we copy some code to the host and execute when the user runs the CLI, right? So and in general, right? So what I feel is that I don't know whether going to the automated generic CLI will we eventually, because there'll be some challenge there, right? So and I think Vishu doesn't want to go there at all, right? So he's saying, I probably want to develop my plugin there and hook into the framework, but ultimately, right? So I think if we can agree that this plugin should basically it's a command line, so should only access the config DB, right? So then later we should be able to provide some access control to the config DB to limit the the access, right? So then I think it should not be, executed any code. Doing anything on the host, right? So, we drop the privilege, allow it to connect to the config DB. Even later, we can introduce some mechanism that it can only access the portion of the data, right? So in the config DB, not all the data.
Okay.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, two things here, Gugan. One is, okay, this privilege dropping, it sounds a little more complex. None of us here have an idea on that. And two, what I'm saying, actually, my first proposal to Stephen was not to totally block this, right? So if I, for example, trust this package very much, then I don't really mind it installing plugins into the host, right? That makes it simpler for the package developer. So all I'm telling Stephen is put a line in the document saying that as an app package manager level, I should have the privilege to skip plugin install or not. That's all. So that way, the app packages can go ahead in the same way Stephen thing, and the one for once I trust, I'll just go ahead and install the plugins and let it do what it does. And then, later, as you said, this ACL control and all those things can come in. And where I don't trust,
I feel like on this part I agree with Ben that either if we shouldn't do that. I mean, either if the user has a security concern, then it does not install the plugin, right? So, or there's a kind of plugin that doesn't provide any. Oh, sorry, there is a kind of extension that doesn't provide any plugin, and the user can install it. Or because I feel like if we provide the framework, then the developers, if they want to use it, we shouldn't limit that, right? So we shouldn't say, okay, only install your Docker but not the plugin. If the developer is saying, okay, you need to install both, right? So then we install both, but the user can decide whether I want to install this package or not.
True, exactly. The app package manager decides whether those plugins are mandatory or not. So as a user, when I install a package, and if I say no for plugins, then those packages will be not it will be blocked from installing, right? And those packages where the CLI plugin extension is like a thing, like it's a nice to have, but not a mandatory, they can go ahead install. That's the only difference between you and me. You say when as a user, when I don't want plugin, instead of dropping all packages, allow the packages where the CLI is not mandatory. That's the only place where you and me differ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically I want a control at the package manager level, that I want to allow the plugin to be copied or not at the package manager level. And as a package developer level, I have a way to say that is my plugins are mandatory or not. And with that, we are good.
Okay. So then there can be another flag under CLI section in the manifest. Either it's a mandatory CLI.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just wanted to confirm one more thing, like the SONiC utilities package is tied to the OS version, right? That's one thing I'm little bit off.
What we want to discuss, like, okay, so we had the concept of the base OS, like, which is everything that is part of the base OS, like similarly to SDK, but later we split the SDK into parts. Like there can be a dependency on a specific version of SDOS as common, Redis, and so on. Here we can do the same. So wonder if you feel like we need to separate the kernel part, the utilities part, everything that is related to the base OS.
I mean, I thought you already have nice labeling at the feature level, right? Like
yes.
You can, so that means your package can say, I want the utilities version, this version.
It's not. It's actually then labels are used just to inherit the versions of components from the base images, while the dependency on some particular component comes from the manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in the manifest. We tell that
Yeah,
we want.
in the manifest you have a nice granularity, right? Like I remember for SWSS, you can even say I want SWSS this version which is tagged with this common version. Same way you can have I depend on SWSS the utilities of this version, which has other sub qualities on those utilities, right? Like and it has these labels also, right?
Yeah, the only difference is that SWSS is it's a package, while the base OS we can have like in the base OS some file generated during the build with the versions of those components, and then in the manifest we can put a dependency. That is the thing I wanted to clarify, whether it's a single version or split it into several
No. I know.
components.
The thing is, no, I still want to understand what is the, why are you tagging utilities to the OS version? That's what I'm trying to understand.
That was the, just to have a single version, so it will be simpler. But since we are now breaking up with the SDK, SONiC SDK, so now we can do the same with the base OS, I think.
So we are
I do not
not.
have like a specific reason for that.
You wanted a discussion, right? Like some utilities versus OS. Or do you still have that active discussion required?
Oh, well, if you're saying that the per component for the base OS is good for you, then I don't have like any.
No, Stephen. I'm not really. No, I'm not really finalizing anything here. I'm just trying to, because that was your original point, right? You wanted
Yes.
to this team to decide on that. I'm trying to start that discussion. Like I want you to present what is the problem you want team to be aware of and what consensus you want the team to give. And I think we have only 4 minutes, 3 minutes left. I don't think it's the right time to start a new one. I think people will have to drop soon.
Can there be an email discussion? Because it seems that we
Yeah,
are basically keeping
yeah,
quiet for the week and then have a lot of agenda for the meeting.
yeah. And we are stuck on one thing, and
Yeah.
we kind of use up the whole time. Maybe if can you give a mail thread on that, Stephen? Because I really, I think none of us understand your original point of utility versus OS or anything outstanding issue. I mean, anything outstanding that we are yet to discuss, if we can make it a points and give a mail thread or something, or maybe create a sub document here and people can comment on, that's even easier. Because mail thread can get lost.
Okay.
Under the issues section, if you create a doc or something which all of us can share and comment on, that would help proceed.
Yeah. Okay. Once I will add another section to the open questions in the document and send a link to that section. So later, so you can then comment on this section in the PR comments. Would that work for you?
Yeah, you quick. Go ahead, Vishwanath. No. Go ahead, Vish. You
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
saying I think I'm good. I think the whole motive is to have some offline discussion before the meeting, whichever form I think I am comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with them. Yeah, however, whichever it helps us move ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, it's almost 9, and let me stop the recording. Thanks a lot for everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.